Okay, morning. Today I want to talk to you about. Today I want to talk to you about a product that will revolutionize the travel industry. In a world where crypto navigates money, PIP is going to be the key to navigate the world. Okay, PIP is like that. It stands for Polygon ID Passport. So let's backtrack a second. Let's talk about travel today. We're going to talk about it through a person. Her name is Jenny. Jenny, or you are her. The thing about Jenny is she's British. She lives in Spain. She enjoys smoking weed in Amsterdam, drinking at the hotel bar, skydiving. She enjoys techno clubs in Berlin. She likes driving fancy cars, and she has a very severe nut allergy, which means when she wants to travel, these things become a problem, right? She's British, Brexit. She lives in Spain. She needs a residency card now, to smoke joints, to drink margaritas, to go to Bergheim. She needs to show proof of identity. And for her nut allergy, this is something that she needs to show everywhere, from the airport to the hotel, in every chain of her travel, right? So that makes traveling today really difficult, right? When I was looking at the research of how people see traveling today, these are the things that were coming up: exhausting, tiring, cumbersome, all these kind of words. And so not only is it cumbersome, you also give your data to everyone at every point of measure. And this is personal information. Jenny is giving everyone, from the checkout person at the airport to the person at the hotel to the person at the club, her personal information. And maybe she doesn't want to do that. Maybe she doesn't want to give everyone, especially because, as you can see from that article, there are data breaches. And so traveling today has become fragmented because of all the chains. There is an inefficient checkout process, and there are data and security concerns. And that brings us to PIP, Polygon ID Passport, which is what we've created. So in Polygon, the demo, I'm going to take you through 4 things: connecting the wallet, adding preferences, customizing preferences, because remember, Jenny likes to do things, so we need to see how that actually works with PIP, and also renting a car. So here we go. So on the left is Jenny's actual phone, and on the right, you can see she's connecting her wallet. So this is her screen. Adding in her credentials is something she's only going to have to do once, but as you can see, she's connecting her wallet and authenticating it. Just for the purpose of the demo, her driving license is already in there. She's then going to add her preferences. So what do we already know about Jenny? Well, she likes to eat burgers. She likes to drink margaritas, remember, at the hotel bar. And she has that incredibly severe nut allergy that people need to know about. No nuts. But yeah, and she can put in her hobbies, right? Because this is going to come in, this is going to be important for when she wants to customize her travel experience. So she does like to go nuts, like she's a wild girl. She likes skydiving, like I already said. So she's just putting in her preferences, because when she goes now to the travel agent, this is going to become important. And like we said, she likes to go to Berlin, she likes clubbing there, and she likes Amsterdam. So what we want to do is create a personalized experience for someone like Jenny. So now, what is happening is, just for purposes, on the right is actually the travel agent. So first she's adding her credentials. So this point, she's only going to have to do once. So she's going to add her credentials now, but this isn't something that she's going to have to do every single time she travels. Now on the right, we've become the travel agent. What she can do is connect PIP to the travel agent, which is the right. This is still, on the left is still Jenny. So Jenny is allowing the travel agent to have, she's approving it so that they can have some level of information which they can then use to customize her experience. So she gets an experience that's specific to that. So the status is pending. She's approving them to have her data, to have the things she likes, her food, her hobbies, and stuff like that. So the status is pending. Is it going to go through? Okay, so now the travel agent can create a customized experience for Jenny. She can also take that away. She can actually add an expiry date, because she's in control of her data with PIP. Now, Jenny now wants to rent a car. So Jenny puts in her name. Her surname is actually Lopez. She's got the same surname as a famous singer. And she puts in her date of birth. But even though she puts in her date of birth, she's not actually giving that information to when she rents a car. what she's actually showing is she old enough? Can she drive a car, rather than specifically giving someone her date of birth. So Jenny is completely in control of how and when her data is used. And that is the point of PIP, right? So it's authenticating, and you can see it's approved, but without actually necessarily saying how old she is. So there you go. That's how PIP works. So the key features of PIP are the rapid identity authentication, integration with travel systems, the fact that you can add your preferences, and the fact that you can actually control your data. So like I said, rather than her saying her actual date of birth, she's saying that she is old enough to do this certain activity. So like we said, these are the things that we remember about Jenny, but now when she travels, all she has to do is do it once. So traveling with PIP now becomes easy, it becomes efficient because there's not that many chains in the process of her documentation, and it's secure because she owns her own data, and so there's less likely to be people looking at her data because she can control that. So what's next for the future of PIP and for Jenny, right? We've talked about the problem, we've talked about how PIP is going to solve that, but what about the future? Well, for us, we think that PIP is actually the backbone of the wider integration of the ecosystem when it comes to traveling. So on day one, we talked about all the different challenges from hotel network to Camino. And the thing is, we think that actually PIP could be the cornerstone that is underneath. So as an example, with Camino Messenger, we can personalize that experience even more with the customization of Jenny's preferences. Or with Holiday Check, right? You can prove that she's an actual person. So we're kind of integrating already into the issues that we talked about on day one. But I also believe we can take it a little bit further. And when we say that, beyond the things that we talked about in the last 3 days, I think that when it comes to Jenny and how she creates her preferences and how we all look at travel today, we can take the preference element even further, adding in machine learning and AI so that she has an even more personalized experience. And then secondly, when it comes to predictive analytics for boarding, what we were thinking was I think we've all been at the airport and they say gate 4, and then you go to gate 4 and then everyone's just standing there like little piglets trying to get on the plane. And it's what we want to do is integrate with systems in airports and stuff like that. So actually we can use predictive analytics for boarding and kind of slow down, and everyone can kind of have a more streamlined experience, which is what we all want, right? And then we've also added in potentially a feature that we would want to add in is around sustainable travel tracking. So, you could maybe potentially you could opt in or opt out of putting in your carbon footprint and have an offset. So thank you so much. That is the future. I just want to say we are Dash, so Dimitri, Ali, Sanjo, and Helen. And although we talked about Jenny, Jenny is just a metaphor for us. We are Jenny. Thank you.
Oh, no, keep it.
Oh, yeah, question. Do you guys want to come up?
Thank you, Helen. Sylvia, first question.
So thank you very much. Very well presented, and I think we could all grasp the advantages, right? How do you see the probability of verifying really affecting this? Because finally, there's no incentive maybe for them to it's highly beneficial for the user, right? Because you don't need to go through that process of sharing your information once and again. But for the ones that are requiring that information, they actually need to integrate that in their systems.
Mm-hmm.
How high do you see the chances, and how would you promote doing so?
So your question is, why would would a hotel or something
Exactly.
use PIP? Why would they want to use it? I think it's a great question. And I can also, when I was looking, you can also see the benefit of how a dysfunctional system always works, right, for somebody, and that's the point of dysfunction. But at the same time, I think with the elements of PIP, it allows, even though for the user, they have more control over their data, it also will allow, because it will for let's say a hotel or something, it allows them to actually create a more catered experience for the people that they're trying to cater to. So as an example, if you worked at this hotel and you know Jenny has a serious nut allergy, she's not going to have to say to every single person verbally and writing it down, I have a serious nut allergy, because people will already be informed because she's already informed them. So I think in a way it's beneficial for airlines to hotels and stuff like that, because they can create a more personalized experience for safety, because that is actually a safety concern, but also just for people who have, people who are kosher or halal or stuff like that. So in a way, it benefits everyone.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
I have. So if you say in your example, I own my data and the travel agent gets the data. So what exactly do they get other than the QR code? And how are they going to work with that data in your example?
So in the example of like Jenny's preferences, what we're thinking is when she puts in like, I like smoking joints and going to techno clubs, they can create a more personalized experience for what she likes to do. So we see it as a way for them to actually like think of her as a person and actually create an experience. But also for Jenny herself, she can opt out of that, because a lot of the time, once we opt into X thing and because we want that personalized experience, then we're bombarded and we have no way of getting out of it. It's like once you give your data, that's it for life. And so with what we want to do, as well as like the future of PIP, adding in machine learning and AI, it will allow travel agents to kind of create that more personalized experience, but also for the user to kind of opt out of that. Did that answer your question?
Partly. Thanks.
Or I don't know, maybe.
I have two questions. Try to combine the new world with the old world. For example, of having nut allergy is a very interesting one. If there was a fail point, if she actually does get served nuts and she has a reaction, and she hasn't actually physically told anybody that she has a nut allergy, how does it work out legally? Because
How would that work legally?
People can sort of say, "Don't, I didn't read PIP, or I didn't understand it properly. I've seen it for the first time. I'm not responsible. It's her responsibility to tell me." Second question: how many PIPs are going to be out there in the future? How many Jennies are going to be out there in the future?
Sorry, what was the second
How
question?
many PIPs or how many Jennies are going to be out there in the future?
How many pips or Jennies are going to be? Well, I mean, to answer the second question, everyone is going to be a user of PIP, and everyone is already Jenny. So, but I think with the first question, it's a really interesting question, because how does that work legally? But I think we would have to adopt what the laws are now, right? We'd have to use the legacy, and because when it comes to PIP and when it comes to using this, right, we expect that we're going to have to build on legacy systems anyway, which means we'd already have to build on the legacy and the infrastructure of the legal system. So of course, in our world, we would want that to change, but I think we'd have to go at how the law is now, right? If you go to a restaurant and you say you have a nut allergy, in a way you can sue them, right? So wouldn't necessarily, PIP wouldn't necessarily change. We're not necessarily changing the legal structures that are already there. We just want to build on it and make it better for users. Like, I think when you have an issue like, for instance, I'm gluten intolerant, and you don't want to necessarily go around saying to everyone, "Hey guys, I'm gluten intolerant. Like, have you thought about this?" So it just allows it to be less like of a thing, even if you might have to tell someone. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, more than a question is a consideration. I mean, if there are two key areas on which you would have to work a lot if you go on with this project, that are integrations with systems. I mean, how do you facilitate the different companies that want to jump on board? And the second one is compliance and regulatory, legal.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I saw them as weaknesses right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think with PIP or Polygon ID, we recognize that we would have to work with like government and government agencies for it to work. Because there is an assumption, you are correct, there is an assumption within PIP or Polygon ID that you're already working with government agencies. Because when you verify it, in theory, you scanned it, it's a government paper that's already been issued, and then from there on, the chain works. But you are correct in saying like the government or issuer has to be on board with this concept for it to work. But I think that is the point of what we want to do. We are showing that there's a flaw in the system that you have now, where you're having to give this physical passport, this physical driving license to every single person, and your driving license or whatever says, it literally says your address on it. It says where you're born. Not everybody needs to know some of this information, and so so I guess to answer your question, we would have to work with governments and different people and get them on board. So I would have to do 1,000 pictures every day.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
And thanks for the solution.